Welcome everyone, my name is Brendan Snyder. Thank you for joining me. If you're new to my channel and you haven't already hit the subscribe button, please click the button. Also hit like, leave a comment, all those things help support my channel. I would greatly appreciate it, and as an added bonus, you'll be able to stay up to date on all that's going on in the world of music. Just like this, we're going to talk about music bootlegs, these unofficial recordings, and the dilemma that music fans have on whether or not they should buy them. So I titled this Music Bootlegs a Catch-22, and that's exactly what this is. It's a catch-22. You can't win any, for losing here. If a music fan buys it, you're hurting the band, but if a music fan buys it, it's because they love the band. So I want to talk about that, and we're going to jump back just a little bit here into the idea. The term bootleg generally means something that is made and sold illegally, and it originates from the practice of smuggling illicit items in the legs of tall boots. So going back to things like Prohibition and bootlegging, where they sold illegal alcohol, that's where that comes from. But generally the term has now come to mean illegal music recordings, and there's lots of different words that are used to mean the same thing here. We got unofficial, unauthorized, unsanctioned, and then this was an interesting one that the bootlegging community came up with to try to be fancy about it. It's called RIO, which is recording of indeterminate origin. And so if you ever see RIO written on something, it's just a fancy way of saying it's a bootleg. So bootlegs, though, should not be confused with counterfeit or unlicensed recordings. These are albums that are reproduced that a band has already released and someone else is releasing it but not paying the band for it. And bootlegs themselves, though, are material that a band or record label have not released. And so I know this may be splitting hairs here, but I don't agree with counterfeit recordings, whereas I will get behind some bootleg recordings. And so counterfeit recordings have popped up a lot, especially in countries in recent years that have really relaxed copyright laws like China and Russia. For me, I'd rather have an original release the way that a band intended it to be than to have a counterfeit version of it. So I will always search out an official release if one exists. The thing is that with bootlegs, it's of material that bands haven't released or labels haven't released, and so there aren't official versions of these things to actually track down out there. So while I don't like purchasing bootlegs and not giving my money to the band itself, instead giving it to somebody else, a third party, it's not like I can get this material from the band or the artist that I'm trying to get this from. So that's where this is a catch-22. I'm a fan of the band. I want to support the band, but at the same time, I'm a fan of the band and I want everything that the band has done, even the stuff that they haven't released. So unfortunately, it's a no-win situation for most of us fans. So buying a bootleg, as I said, it's bad for the band because they're not getting the money for this. However, buying the bootleg itself in turn actually expands my interest and my love for the band, and thereby makes me actually go out and spend more money on the band in other ways, whether it's through concerts, t-shirt purchases, memorabilia, books, whatever. So it does help work towards a band's benefit in some ways, although I know that it isn't what everyone would hope for it to be. So as this does equate to additional sales towards for other bands here, I will summarize this by saying that essentially, yes, bootlegs are bad, but I do own some bootlegs. So I thought I'd run through what some of those are. And I want to start off by saying, this backdrop that I've got behind me here. So I chose Pink Floyd and Neil Young. And yes, I know Neil Young really hates bootlegs. But I wanted to show that when an artist releases things like the later years by Pink Floyd that collects up a whole bunch of unreleased stuff, and Neil Young and his 10-disc volume 2 of his new archives, I do purchase those things. And so I also wanted to point out things like Nick Mason released, a live album, a bootleg of his live shows, the Saucer Full of Secrets shows that he did came out, and I picked that up. But once he released an official version, I went and picked that up. And the same thing for Roger Waters. When he did his Us and Them tour, I picked up a bootleg of the show itself. but once he officially released it, I picked those up there. So I do go out and buy the original versions or the official versions of these once they are released. All right, keeping on the Pink Floyd theme, I wanted to point out some other ones. So they did a remix for Metal in 2016, and it was intended to be part of the early years box set, but then it wasn't released as part of that. So the only way to pick it up is in that manner, unless of course you know how to decode Blu-rays and you can pull the digital content out there, which is what happened. It was left in the Blu-ray digital content version embedded in the code, and some fans found it that way and pulled it out, and that's how we got that. Same thing with this 2016 remix of the Live in Pompeii that was part of that. So next up, Pink Floyd Forever and Ever. This is a fan-made reinterpretation, a remix and edit of both The Endless River and The Division Bell. It's a what-if sort of thing if the Division Bell had been a double album, which was contemplated at the time. And then I've got a disc of outtakes from The Division Bell and The Endless River. Again, you know, stuff that is demos and things that are done by the band but just not released by them, not part of the later years box set. I would have gladly had that, wish that had been included there, but it wasn't. I actually picked this up afterwards because it was not included on the later years box set. Here's another interesting one, the 8-track cartridge master to Animals. And the reason I picked this up here is that for the 8-track, because the tape was on a loop on it, they couldn't have Pigs on the Wing at the beginning and the end because it would just start right over into it and it would have been weird. So what they actually did is recorded it as one long full complete song instead of doing it as bookending at the beginning and the end of the album. So on an 8-track, it's track number 1 and it's the full length, and they had Snowy White add a guitar solo to it when they made it into 1 track. Well, I don't have an 8-track player, so I had to pick that up. And then they did a 2019 stereo remix for Piper at the Gates of Dawn, but then ultimately decided not to release it. So again, I found a version of this. If and when that ever comes out, you know, for a 50th anniversary or something, I'll be glad to pick that up. Roger Waters has Project Chaos, and a fan did a reinterpretation of this as well, gathering up B-sides and other live recordings and things of that nature, fleshing out the album now into 14 tracks. And for both that and the Pink Floyd Forever and Ever, it's really great because they mastered that so that all of the material sounds like it was done at the same time, and it really comes across great. All right, now I've got a bunch of other ones I'm going to kind of blow through here just to kind of show you an overview. I picked up an Asia live album. This one here has, let's see, I'm sorry, it's got, Billy Sherwood doing vocals on it. That was the reason for picking this one up here. Just like this one here, I picked up an AC/DC one that's got Axl Rose singing lead in place of Brian Johnson. I've got this one here, a Black Sabbath Eternal Idol demos that's actually got Ray Gillen doing it, and these are different than the master demos that were later issued as part of the remastering of the album. There's a long history to all of these albums here, but there are some UK released remasters of the Eternal Idol, and it did come officially with Ray Gillen demos, but these here are different than that, so I had to pick that up there. Then if you know the history of Black Sabbath, you know that for a very brief moment, Jeff Feenholt was a vocalist for them, and he was famous for having starred on Broadway in Jesus Christ Superstar at the time. And he also fronted Geezer Butler's solo band, and so this is a disc that has demos from Black Sabbath in 1985 and Geezer Butler, both with Jeff Feenholt singing. And then Geezer Butler Band, he had a band that was called that for a while, and this is a live recording from it. This has a different vocalist. It's Richie Callison singing on it. So again, a lot of these things are just things you can't get that have had years and years and years of opportunity to be released, and they're not. Bad English Missing, these are a bunch of demos, 15 tracks that were recorded prior to their second album. Really great stuff. Coverdale Page, live in 1993. So far, no live album from them yet. David Coverdale's talked about it, doing a box set for the Coverdale Page album. Hopefully this is going to turn up on there as an official release. Cinderella, Long Cold Winter demos with Cozy Powell as the drummer on it. So I wanted to pick that up. And then this one's a pretty cool one. This is Cinderella again, but it's the Unreleased Tapes, and this one spans from 83 to 85. And there's a bunch of unreleased tracks on that have never made it onto their albums. It's worthwhile. Guns N' Roses demo recordings for Use Your Illusion. Hopefully they will put out a box set that'll gather up some of that and do it officially. Heaven and Hell, tribute to Ronnie James Dio, Black Sabbath, but this time fronted by Jorn Landy and Glenn Hughes. And I just thought, what a great thing to hear what Black Sabbath would be like with those guys fronting, so I wanted to check that out. Iron Maiden soundboard recordings from 95 to 98 with Blaze Bayley singing live. I'm a big fan of Blaze Bayley and the time that he spent on Iron Maiden, but there's no live album with him. This one here is really cool too. Ultimate Works. This is with Bruce Dickinson, and it's 4 discs. The first disc is cover songs. It collects up 17 tracks of cover songs, and there's disc 2 is alternate versions from 82 to 93. And then we've got another alternate versions. This one is since 1999 when he returned. And then there's disc 4 studio sessions, which has some really cool different versions of things there. And then this one here, is from 78 to 81 and collects together some really great stuff from Iron Maiden. It's got the Soundhouse tape sessions. That was the reason I picked this up for, but it's also got tracks from other compilations, BBC recordings, and different single tracks and things like that on it. All right, moving right along. Kiss, the studio demos from 1975. And I picked this one up in particular because there's a number of tracks here that were unreleased at the time. Some are still unreleased, but in particular, some of these have now turned up on the Kiss box set that they did that came in the guitar case kind of a thing. But there's still a couple tracks there that aren't available in any way. And so I don't know why they're holding back on releasing some of these things. This is a really cool one. Jakey Lee, it's called Rare Works from 81 to 2000. It's got some stuff when he was back with Stephen Pearcy and Mickey Ratt before they became Ratt. It's got early Rough Cuts stuff. It's got Badlands on here. These are all demos and things, not stuff that's on the albums. It's got a project that he did, Wicked Alliance, that was with Mandy Lyon on vocals. But the reason I picked this one up here was Bourgeois Pig. There was a track that he did with Richard Black on vocals. And I really wanted that. I'd always heard about it. This was around 2000, and then nothing ever came of it. I don't know what happened to the band, but I finally found a track from it. All right, this one here is really cool. Did not know this stuff exists. It's the Ozzy Osbourne, and it's referred to as the Osmosis demos, but it is actually not demos for Osmosis. It was done prior to the Osmosis demos. And this one here features 8 tracks that did not appear on that album, and I've done as much research as I possibly can on it, and there was I believe the album was tentatively titled Aussie Land or something along those lines, and he recorded it around 1992, and then it was shelved, and later on he then recorded the Osmosis album, which came later. But that's the stuff that's from that unreleased 1992 album. All right, Queensryche, 1995. They performed the album in its entirety here, and it's just a really great run-through of the Promised Land. Really great, sound quality from this. And yes, there's a lot of live albums from Queensryche. There's just not one from that time period, so I had to pick that up. All right, Rolling Stones, 40 Licks. This is the studio sessions, and this too has a bunch of other tracks that they were working on at the time. And then they did complete 4 of the songs, or 4 of the studio sessions that became the bonus tracks that ended up on 40 Licks. But there's a bunch of extra stuff here. There's like 9 extra tracks that they were working on that didn't make it to that. So if you're looking for some unreleased Rolling Stones stuff, it's right there. This one here, Rolling Stones Collection, or Collectibles. This gathers up a whole bunch of B-sides and things that were from 91, 94, 92, some remixes, There's you know, some things that are got like, you know, it's got dub mix and dirty hand mix, things like that. So different remixes and stuff, but also B-sides and things. Then we've got this one here that's early Voodoo, so demos to Voodoo Lounge, and then one called Training Wheels by the Rolling Stones, and so demos to Steel Wheels. But I like this one because it's a 2-disc set of demos, 16 tracks there that were worked on for that. David Lee Roth has never put out a live album, and this one here, Tokyo Skyscraper, and this one here is really great sound quality. It's with Steve Vai on guitar, and you just can't beat having Steve Vai live on guitar there. And again, so I picked it up because he doesn't have a live recording, and the fact that it's with Steve Vai on it. So Gene Simmons did a tour, a solo tour, just as the Gene Simmons Band. And, you know, I thought this would be really interesting to you know, hear and you know, what is Gene Simmons like doing this as a solo artist? And so he did some of his stuff from, you know, solo days, the solo Kiss album that he had done. Just really great stuff there. All of these have really great sound quality on them. That's why I'm showing them to you. If you ever see these, you can know that these are solid quality recordings. Bruce Springsteen, big fan of his. I've got a bunch of bootlegs and things by him, but I'm just going to show you a couple of them here. So this one here, the Born to Run Sessions. This one here's got 13 tracks on it, and it's fleshed out with other takes of things. And then we got this one, Born in the USA Outtakes. This one here is a 2-disc set. It's got 11 tracks on it, a bunch of different takes of those, as well as ones that didn't make the album. Then it's got 5 B-sides. Then disc 2, it's got a whole bunch more, another 10 outtakes. Plus it's got 6 solo performances of tracks on here. But all in all, just a huge amount of outtakes and unreleased material on that. Late 80s hair band Vixen, all-female band Vixen, and this one here really surprised me. I picked it up. It was pretty inexpensive. It's got a bunch of extended mixes, remixes, demos, live tracks, B-sides. It also comes with a DVD called Revved Up that they had done. But all the material on here is really high quality. I mean, it sounds like it's been remastered. It's so good. All right, and close things out, these two Van Halen, I got 2 Van Halen ones. This one here with Gary Cherone on lead vocals. Again, no live recording with him. They almost sweep his time period under the rug. It really should be given more due than it's got. And then we got the Firestarter demos here. These are the Gene Simmons demos from 1976, and then also the Warner Brothers demos from a year later in 77. It is a 3-disc set of unreleased demos, and it's got a whole bunch of ones that have never been re-recorded and appeared on their albums. So just some really great stuff. I don't know if it's a rights issue or what it is, why they haven't been gathered up and released, but you know, maybe with the passing of Eddie Van Halen now, some of that stuff is going to finally get dusted off and sifted through, because both his brother Alex and his son Wolfgang have both said they plan to go through the archives and start releasing that stuff. And certainly if that stuff gets released, any of this stuff gets released, I do plan on picking it up. So, all right, there you go. You know, a lot of great stuff. You can see why, as a music fan, I would be so hard-pressed to not pick some of this stuff up, you know. And if the stuff was available officially, I would pick it up that way. All of these things that I've picked up, it's because I've waited years and years of getting either these demos or these live versions of things. And so actually all these bootlegs that you see here, these are all ones that I purchased during the pandemic. So over the last year, these are the ones that I searched out and picked up. All right, if this goes over well, I'll put together a whole collection more of additional bootlegs and things that I have. But otherwise, this lets you sort of see what that sort of catch-22 is on all of this. And I hope you guys appreciate it and enjoy it. And if you did, please leave me your comments. Let me know your thoughts. I hope everyone has a great day, and I'll talk to you all real soon. Bye, everyone.